The One Ring is paramount to the story of the Lord of the Rings, but its use is almost evil, but maybe a little confusing. In this episode with Matt and Mark, you'll be joining us to discuss the One Ring and its importance in Middle-earth. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the White City Podcast. Today I have back with me for first time in a while, Matt and Mark, my two co-hosts. So
it's good to be back.
OG squad.
The OG squad. Oh my.
I still haven't seen season 2, so we can't talk about that.
But we can talk about the One Ring, which is, the sort of the center of the Lord of the Rings story. I mean, that's what it's called, Lord of the Rings. And a big part of that is the One Ring. And the One Ring has not shown up in the show yet, so we'll see when it does. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's true. So, let's just hop right into it. A lot of people, I don't know if people have picked up in all of my episodes that there's some things that I've tried to connect with, let's say Tolkien's worldview that kind of connect back to his faith, that show up in the rings. Well, not the Rings of Power necessarily, but in his books. So, I guess with the One Ring, I do want to be touching on the themes of universal morality, good versus evil, temptation, and divine intervention. And I guess maybe to start off is the ring altogether evil?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. That was too easy. That was too easy. No. So you can elaborate, but I guess what was Sauron's intent with creating the One Ring?
I guess I'll go first. So I think it's interesting, maybe your question of is the ring altogether evil, right? Because in Tolkien's world, we talk about the characters, and right, and Tolkien classically says nothing was ever originally evil, even Sauron was not so, right? And that everything begins as good and then later is corrupted. But I think the point of the ring is that it's the culmination of corruption, right? It's Sauron at his most corrupted, trying to literally destroy the world, and so he pours into it, right? It's a part of his soul. He pours in everything that's bad about him into the One Ring. So I think it's interesting. The One Ring is sort of the antithesis of the good in this story, even more so than Sauron or other characters. The ring is sort of the ever-present evil that's in the lives of the characters every single day, right? It's tempting and breaking up the fellowship. It's corrupting the people around it and the people who are wearing it. And so I think it's Tolkien's manifestation of evil, sort of as a more commonplace, right? Not this Sauron who in the story is pretty distant. Even Saruman is not every day, but the ring is always with them. And it's the evil that, is among the fellowship and not outside of it.
Yeah. I think, too, the evil that it has is a very, manipulative kind of evil. Because, again, going along with the theme where, evil corrupts and corruption is evil, sort of in Tolkien's worldview. And so that is what the ring does, is that it takes the goodness, good, genuinely good things that you may want, and turns those into evil things. So Boromir wanting to take the ring to defend Gondor, it's it's objectively a good thing that he wants to defend Gondor, but the ring is a temptation to use this power. And we all know, as the readers and most of the wise people in the book acknowledge that it's a lie, it's a farce. If you use this, you will eventually, it will serve evil purposes. And so even with Tolkien was on record as saying the only person that for sure could have wrested control of the ring away from Sauron was Gandalf, and even if he did that, he would become a tyrant with it.
Sorry, Gandalf and Tom Bombadil, right?
Well, I do want to clarify. I don't think Tom Bombadil could wrest control of the ring away from Sauron. I think he'd just confuse the ring. I think as as he has done to all of us forever.
Yes. I just love anytime you like say the only person who could do this, you have to like it has to also throw Tom Bombadil.
Well, again, I don't think because I think they talk about what happens if you give the ring to Tom, and he's just I think
He would forget about it, right? Is what they said. He would be a trinket that he could just
if
toss away.
Yeah, I think if he for whatever reason did take an interest in the ring, that eventually it would corrupt him, and eventually it would turn
Unless Tom is a Levitar. But now we're talking about Tom Bombadil in the ring.
I was gonna say, I think that if Tom got the ring, what you would see is everyone would be happy all the time to the extent that there is no being sad is illegal. Because I think that's what it does. Is it takes the good part of somebody and perverts it into something worse, which is why I think that it basically fails against Sam, because what he wants isn't particularly grand or wide sweeping, and so he very quickly realizes it's ridiculous and is like, nope, I'm just going to use this to go save Mr. Frodo and then give it back to him.
Yeah, I think this is really interesting because we see that it's not just that it corrupts good things into evil things, but that it has more of an influence on power. People who want power, right? Boromir wants power to defend his city, right? Yes. But we understand that power corrupts, and the ring has a stronger influence on people who want power. I think also, the classic, I think the movie's got this pretty right when Gandalf is confronted with Bilbo's Frodo is take the ring, Gandalf, take it from me. Yeah. It's and I would use this ring for good, but through me it would be wield a powerful, too great and terrible to even imagine. Yeah. As this idea that no one can use the ring for good. It's only everything will turn to evil that it's used for. Yeah. I think it's interesting, right, when we look at the real world, there maybe are things like this, and that power is more likely to corrupt us. But it's sort of an interesting, do the ends justify the means, right? And the ring is sort of maybe an answer to that question in Tolkien's mind. It's no, because anytime you try to use something evil to accomplish something good, in the end the outcome will be corrupted. Yeah.
So somebody putting on the One Ring would be wrong in and of itself, or is that not wrong in and of itself to put on the ring?
I think it's not necessarily wrong as much as it's a really stupid idea, because anytime it's used in the books, in The Hobbit, everything goes swimmingly and it's fine. In The Lord of the Rings, every time Frodo uses it, he feels laid bare against the power of Sauron, and it's that short term. Yeah, this will get me out of this. This will get me out of this situation, but then instant regret of, oh no, now I'm in a worse situation. And so it's not necessarily inherently evil, and maybe in Tolkien's reading of this would make it inherently evil, but I don't think the act of putting the ring on is inherently evil. Quite honestly, I think that's why it's so insidious, is because, again, it takes good things and twists them, and it's not until the evil act that Frodo does with the ring when he puts it on. Because that's another thing, is there's a difference between I'm putting the ring on for the purpose of turning invisible and getting me out of the situation, and at the cracks of Mount Doom, Frodo puts the ring on and he goes, no, it's mine. I am claiming this. I am going to go, I don't know what he was planning to do, go punch Sauron or something. But at that moment, he's been worn down by the ring, constantly tempting him to claim it. And it's that act that is kind of the culmination of things that aren't necessarily wrong in and of themselves, but lead to the wrong choice. Which I will also clarify, Tolkien himself said that literally nobody would have not done that at the cracks of Doom. So, it's very easy, if you don't have that context, to read this as, oh, Frodo, you were this close. But it's him, Frodo was literally the only person that could have physically gotten the ring that far before claiming it. And so, to go into the idea of divine intervention, I think that moment is the most, outside of Iluvatar sinking Numenor, and outside of the Valar, well, even maybe including the Valar directly coming and attacking Morgoth, this is the most, I think it's the most reflective of how we would expect divine intervention to work in our world, in that Smeagol is there, and he's been chasing them, and he's been kept alive, and it's him being kept alive and following the Fellowship, and following Frodo and Sam and being with Frodo and Sam, and Frodo's pity of him, that allows him to be there, because on his own, Frodo couldn't throw it in the cracks of Doom. On his own, Gollum definitely couldn't throw it in the cracks of Doom. But it is through their interaction and the ensuring that those two people are there at that specific time that allows the ring to be destroyed.
Yeah. Have you guys heard my theory on that, Gollum is the Christ figure in the story of Lord of the Rings?
I mean,
right? He's the sacrificial lamb. They need somebody to do something that nobody else can, and Gollum would claim the ring, and he would sacrifice himself and die. So we have Aragorn, who's the returning king. We have Gandalf, who's the resurrected, savior, and we have the sacrificial lamb as Gollum. And those are the three Christ figures in Lord of the Rings.
If you're gonna go there, I think you have to kind of throw that it's Gollum and Frodo, because again, Frodo is all right. So at the Council of Elrond, Frodo says, "I will take it." He willingly takes on this burden.
Yeah. The suffering servant, right? Yes. Maybe is the Frodo analogy.
I would more say that I think that Frodo is, for one thing, as per Tolkien's feelings, I would push back on there being any explicit.
Oh, of course not. Yeah,
here.
I was saying the themes, right? You see Christ themes reappear in the story.
I think that the places that those Christ themes show up is more subtle and more generalized, rather than I think it's just Gollum, and just I think Christ themes show up in a lot of different characters.
Yeah,
it was So I think is it Phil Riken? Have you know about Phil Riken?
I do know about him.
He wrote a book about prophet, priest, and king.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if I don't think he had a Gollum included in there. He was talking about Gandalf, Aragorn, and Frodo.
Yeah. Fun fact.
But
his wife is my dad's cousin.
That is a fun fact.
Yeah. Oh my!
I know his family.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. So one thing I was thinking is, so I know Matt's brought this up before, and I've kind of learned some more about it afterwards too. Is it's interesting that right, The Hobbit was first written with the sense of the One Ring not being evil ring, right?
In The Hobbit, it's literally just a ring that turns him invisible.
Right. So I know it's just I know it's exactly not how would you say expanded upon until the Lord of the Rings. So
I do want to clarify. So the way it works is really interesting. I had this context the last time I read through Lord of the Rings, is that in the initial version of The Hobbit, the riddle scene was totally different. Gollum does just give Bilbo the ring after winning the riddle contest. He's fine, you won it fair and square. It's your birthday present or whatever he says. If you read the introduction to the Fellowship of the Ring, it has this whole explanation of that the original edition of The Hobbit is what Bilbo told everybody. So he did go back and revise The Hobbit after The Lord of the Rings, and so the version that I'm pretty sure we've all read and that most people that have read The Hobbit have read includes a scene that is much more sinister. Gollum is much more threatening of a character, because he was changed. He changed that scene to fit into his idea of the ring tempting people and Gollum being a villain to some extent and all that stuff. And so I just want to say, like, I think it's a cool way that he, like, decanonized but didn't decanonize the old editions of the book. Because, you know, the central conceit of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is that these are true stories that somebody has found and translated into English. And so the older editions of The Hobbit are ones that, you know, that's the one that Bilbo wrote, and then the updated version is what Frodo and Sam edited in because they're like, my uncle is a liar. He's a cool liar, but he's a liar.
That's interesting. Like whenever, 'cause I didn't know that at first until actually Matt had brought it up. So I was like, yeah, that's pretty cool.
I was gonna say, I think Riddles of the Dark is really interesting, right? Because how each character gets the ring has a profound impact. I think Tolkien said this, like the way somebody gets the ring has a profound impact on the effect of the rings has on them. And it's interesting, right? Bilbo is like sort of the weird one, right? Where he just like picks it up off the ground, he finds it randomly.
And divine intervention.
He was meant to have the ring, right? But Gollum, on the other hand, you know, stole the ring, and therefore Bilbo did have, and it had an effect on him. But it didn't have the same effect it had on Gollum, or the Hole did that it did. And Bilbo freely gave it to Frodo, and therefore, like, Frodo also didn't have the hold on him. But we see other characters, you know, like Isildur, who tried to, you know, took it from Sauron's hand and had, like, a very entitled sense, right? This is my payment back for losing my father and brother.
Which I do think, and again, I think I misremembered stuff in the past when I've talked about this, but I do think that a lot of people are really hard on Isildur for taking the ring, and it's like, I don't know if at that point, well, I guess they would have known what the ring was by that point, but
also, keep going.
Well, I think that taking, like, now, very fancy summer
It's like one of the original ones that they
like, technically speaking, Isildur was within his right to claim the ring. Like, legally speaking. And so, it wasn't like and like, you know, put yourself there. Like, if this guy had just taken the two most important people in your life, you would also probably want some kind of, like, screw you, I'm gonna take your important piece of jewelry sort of thing.
I mean, the super evil dark wizard was conquered the world. Let me keep his stuff. That seems like it's a little sus.
Let him keep
I mean,
his stuff.
I think you're right that people are hard on Isildur too much, but
like, I think Isildur is like,
the idea is the ring corrupts people who want power, right? And that's the point, is that Isildur wasn't a little hobbit. He was a person who wanted power, even for good reasons, but he was corrupted by it.
I will say, I think, like, this is something that we should talk about in a later episode, but I think comparing Isildur and Aragorn as, like, Isildur is a fallen hero in the sense that he was really a hero. He did a lot of heroic things, but then he failed at the end, whereas Aragorn does, like, a lot of his journey is mirroring Isildur, except that he succeeds at the end and gets the girl. So, I think we should at some point talk about comparing Aragorn, because there's so much in the books made of he's Isildur's heir, he's like, this is why he is our king, because again, he's descended from Isildur's line, and so,
I mean, if we want to talk about Isildur, Matt, though, you got to watch season 2, right? Because Isildur's one of the main characters. The other thing I want to touch on is, like, what are the ring's actual effects? Because, like, you know, the classic one is turning invisible. Yeah. But the ring has other effects on a person, too, right? There's this really interesting part of the Return of the King, right, where they're passing by the Morgul Vale, and Frodo is tempted to put on the ring and challenge the Witch King to a duel. And it's interesting what the book says, something like, he wouldn't have been powerful enough at that point to be able to actually beat the Witch King. But the idea is the ring has greater effects on somebody besides just turning them invisible. Also gives them magic power, I would assume.
Well, okay, so I will point out that, like, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty, it is really interesting because it's not that the ring makes people invisible, it's that it basically shunts them into the spirit realm. But particularly powerful beings will have a presence in both the spirit realm and the physical world. And so, like, I don't think if Gandalf put the ring on, he would turn invisible. Sauron certainly doesn't turn invisible when he puts the ring on. Isildur does. The hobbits do.
And so wait, just really quick, Isildur's the only man. So wait, who? All the ring bearers are Sauron, Isildur, Gollum, Bilbo,
River,
Deagle, but he never put the ring on, right?
Technically, the river held the ring for the longest amount of time. The end to it is the truth.
Yes.
So it goes Sauron, Isildur, River, Deagle, Smeagol, Bilbo, Frodo, Sam briefly, Frodo again.
But Sam and Deagle never put the ring on, right?
Sam does put the ring on.
He does.
To sneak into...
Past the guards in the tower.
Yes, past the guards into...
I thought... No, he uses the light the lady gives him.
He puts the ring on at some point.
All right, we can fact check this, guys, right here, right now.
Isildur putting on the ring?
Does Sam ever put on the ring?
Sam?
Isildur puts the ring on at Gladden Fields.
I will ask.
Sam?
Yes, Sam.
Yeah. Like Samwise Gamgee?
Yes.
Does Sam?
Yeah.
Yes. He puts this. Yes.
Ever put?
He does.
My question is that just a movie thing? I'm pretty sure it's not.
No.
He doesn't put it on the movies, right?
He does not.
He definitely does not put it on the movies.
But he does in. He does because that's the way he's sneaking around and avoiding the orcs.
And they're all like, "It's an elf. It's a man. It's the
Superman." Well, sorry, no, it's a different franchise.
I stand corrected. Yes, Samwise does briefly put on the One Ring in the Lord of the Rings.
Alternate universe. What if they gave Superman the ring?
Let's not even.
You can't fly the Eagles to Mordor. Can you fly?
Can you fly Superman to Mordor? Is he even corruptible? Okay.
So I had a thing about the ring, which is that hobbits have this actually like an almost so. What somebody said is like the ring enhances people's innate abilities but corrupts them, right? Yes. So the idea is like the more powerful someone is, the greater power increase they would have from the ring. So the idea is like if Gandalf got it, he'd just be like invincible, or Galadriel and other things. But the idea that I had was that, like, you know, hobbits actually do have a magical ability, and it's like this idea that like, whenever a hobbit goes out they can be very stealthy in and of themselves, and that the ring is actually just enhancing this natural ability, this magical ability they have to be stealthy, and is actually like so much so that it makes them invisible. Yeah. But Isildur is like the one problem with that theory because he's the only non-hobbit to put on the ring, and it makes him invisible as well.
Yes.
Though is it significant that he puts on the ring and he wants to like be hiding or something?
Yeah, because again, I think like it has to do with like, and again, I think, to be quite honest, I think we're getting a little bit too nitty gritty into like actual typifying magic systems for Tolkien, because I think that Tolkien, like, this isn't like D&D or Harry Potter where like it's a codified thing. This is magic is like spiritual energy, and you either got it or you don't. And so like it's all very vague. Like you don't have people going like there's sort of backhanded references to people like casting spells, but like
classic example is Gandalf with the right cast a spell on the door to hold it back, and the Balrog casts a counter spell. But that's like really rare.
Like the most involved magical combat that happens. Most of it is, and again, those are like probably two of the three most powerful magical entities that exist on Middle Earth. And so, like, to put it in more codified words, it's like I don't think that like Isildur has that much more like mana than the hobbits do, because again, it's also like the hobbits and the men are related creatures, and so what I think I was gonna say, actually, I think that's actually exactly why it's a soft magic system, is why it's so much more interesting. And I wasn't trying to get down to the nitty gritty, but like the idea that like magic is a part of who people are, right? This is like sort of the classic differences. Like Harry Potter goes to school, he learns how to become a wizard, right? And it's like people can't learn how to become wizards, right? Like that's just who Gandalf is. He's a wizard, like a totally different thing.
Right? And Galadriel's magic, but she's like this ancient elf lady, right? And so there's the characters who are navigating these worlds with these supernatural forces.
And again, like it's much more like magic in the Lord of the Rings is much more tied to like spirituality and stuff, because like the elves are essentially just like more spiritual being. Like, I know a lot of people talk about like the Valar, like they're angels or whatever, but like honestly, the elves also fit into that like minor angel category when you really start to look at it, and that's why like elves like Galadriel and Glorfindel get up to and even eclipse the abilities of some of the Maiar, and so that's why you see those sorts of creatures doing magical things, whereas men and hobbits are, much more like, I'm gonna hit you really hard with a sword.
Well, and it goes back to like, I mean, I will never live it down, but the thing I really hate about the Rings of Power is they need more magic, right? It's like, hey, there's no magic in the world until the rings came along, and then all of a sudden there's magic. It's like, no, the elves are magical, the dwarves are magical. They made magical items, they made magical things before the rings came around. Well, rings don't make people magical, right? Like it's, you're right.
That's the other thing, is that in this universe, magic is really channeled through artifacts like the wizard's staves, like, there's all these swords. They're magical swords. What do? They're just really good swords, guys.
Well, they glow blue, right?
Yeah, they glow blue. But like, and the ring is really the epitome of all of that, because it is the corruption and perversion of the whole magic system. Because Sauron, again, like, so there's also an essay that Tolkien wrote that I have not read, but I have read the gist of it.
Read the TLDR.
Yes, and it's called Morgoth's Ring. And Morgoth's Ring is creation. He took this thing and he poured his will and hatred into it, and he cannot be fully destroyed until it is fully destroyed. Much like how Sauron put his will and corruption into the ring, and he tied it so closely to the other rings that really are like they're not the only instance of magic in the world, but at this point, like, magic is so tied to them that once they go away, magic starts to fade, and the elves start to fade and things like that. And so Sauron essentially, like, you can almost look at it, and maybe he says this in the article, again, I haven't read it, but like, Morgoth puts his corruption and evil into the physical bone, like the physical world of Middle-earth. And Sauron, by putting it into the ring and in tying the magic of the world so much to the ring, he almost does the same thing to the spiritual side of Middle-earth, to a point where he can be defeated, but his corruption cannot be undone.
I've never read that essay. It sounds super interesting. I'll have to go home and read it.
It might be in the Unfinished Tales.
It reminds me, the Morgoth part reminds me of the parable that Jesus tells, right? Of the wheat and the chaff, right? And the people want to tear up the chaff. And he says, but then you'll tear up some of the good wheat, so we'll wait till the end and we'll harvest everything and tear out the chaff then.
But then,
well, I was just going to say, I think, just to be super clear, I think the elves were already fading, or at least the elves who came from Numenor, or from Valinor, their powers were already fading, but they're like the elves who were always there, and they never faded. Or the idea is that, like, right, it was just becoming a man's world, and sort of the idea. So I don't know if I would buy the, like, hey, Sauron linked his ring to the whole magic system or something. But the idea was that the rings were created actually to preserve the powers of Valinor and sort of, preserve the elves' power that they had received from there, and whenever they were destroyed, they faded into the elves who were from Valinor eventually would return. But like Legolas's people were stuck around for the long haul. Well, yeah.
No,
Sounds good.
Well, sorry, you're gonna say something.
I guess I was gonna go back to like talk about the One Ring.
Yeah. Swing it. The only thing was, so I wanted to bring this up because like Matt and I had like kind of talked about it.
We talked about this and then I made a mistake.
I think I was very happy. So we were talking about how we were talking about the Return of the King, and I just brought up something about like basically would like Elrond especially believe that Frodo would at the end, like at Mordor on Mount Doom, throw the ring into the fire of Mount Doom, because like he had confronted Isildur and said, "Hey, you should destroy this," and Isildur was like, "No."
Okay, so I believe I thought my claim was that Elrond wasn't there at that moment.
He was.
But he was there.
He was.
Did they go to the
okay, I
actual
got
cracks
you.
of Doom?
And the
Or were they just on the foot of Mount Doom?
It's a really good question.
so I
Because
think that seems entirely made up for the movie.
No,
and
this is because I'm pretty.
This is part of the
what we
debate.
talked
So here it is. It says the ruling ring passed out of the knowledge even of the wise, and at age yet it was not unmade. For Isildur would not surrender it to Elrond and Círdan, who stood by.
That's right.
They counseled him to cast it into the fire of Ror's ruin, nigh at hand, in which it had been forged, so that it would perish. Blah blah blah.
They were in the neighborhood.
I mean, they were
Yeah.
literally at the foot of Mount Doom, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So I just thought it was, and I just thought it was interesting. Like I had that that idea of like, I feel like the hobbits didn't really know what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah.
I guess.
So like also, just briefly because he's mentioned there, like Círdan is like the most based elf. Like anytime he shows up, he's just like, "Hey, we should do this," and then it's like, "Oh wait, yeah, that would have been the best thing to do," and he's just chilling.
Yeah.
And he has a beard.
He lives in the Grey Havens or whatever. Yeah.
Mind the beard.
Sorry, just daily. Círdan is the best host.
So I had this interesting question. Does the ring, if you're a bearer of the ring and you lose it, it affects you for the rest of your life, even after the ring is destroyed, right?
Yes.
Because Bilbo, right, in the movies is like on his way to the
Yeah.
Grey Havens is like, where's my old ring, right? Like, remember that? Like, and he's,
Yes.
so it's still sort of, is pulling at his heartstrings. And the only possible one, and I think Frodo also, we could say, he was experiencing the Morgul blade and that never really healed, but also
the
maybe the ring was pulling on him. The only one is maybe Sam, who wore the ring, but never seemed to really.
he also
Such a short amount of time, though.
one, I think Sam wore it for such a short amount of time. Two, I really think the important part of Sam and like the point that because Tolkien said, I believe, that Sam is the main character, and the point of Sam is that everyone else is so caught up in this grand adventure they're on and this grand doom that they have and these massive great wars and wanting to, like, even like Merry and Pippin are like wanting to make a name for themselves. And Sam is just going because he made a promise. He, at the end of the day, he is a very simple hobbit who just wants to go home to Rosie and tend a garden and live a simple life. And essentially, the ring, this is the first time the ring has ever encountered someone with like no ambition. And so it tries to show him these ideas of like, you can plant all over Mordor. And he's
Turn
just
Mordor
like,
into a
I don't,
garden.
like, that'd be cool, but like, I don't want that. Like, none of his goals work on massive scale. And so I think part of the reason why Sam isn't affected is, one, he takes up the ring not just as, like, in Frodo's case, it's gifted to him, and he just kind of takes it up as like, oh, I want this ring, and Gandalf's like, and Bilbo takes it up because he finds it. Sam takes up the ring specifically with the purpose of giving it back to Frodo. Sam, and, well, I guess he takes the ring specifically with the purpose of, I want to destroy it, and I think Frodo's dead. And then as soon as he finds out Frodo's still alive, he's just like, oh my goodness, I'm an idiot. I have to go rescue him and give this back. And also, so his noble intentions, he has it for such a short time, and he's just completely alien to the ring. And so I think that's why Sam is like he's as close to a Tom Bombadil of a character outside of Tom Bombadil, because again, Tom Bombadil, like, I think the reason the ring has absolutely no effect on him is because he could, if he wanted to, probably take over the world. He is ridiculously powerful, but he has just decided that I'm going to set myself in my little place, and I'm going to live with Goldberry, and I'm going to sing ditties and just be a happy old, like, goofball and make delicious food. And so it's is. I think that's part of the reason why the ring doesn't have an effect on Tom Bombadil is because Tom Bombadil simply does not care for what the ring like. He's completely apathetic to what the ring is offering, and Sam is not as powerful of a being, so it takes him a minute. But he is also just completely uninterested in the ring, and the ring doesn't know how to deal with that because, like, even corrupting, like, the best he could get with Sam is to have him drop it. But Sam is also so convinced, like, nope, I have to get this to Frodo. So, yeah, I think that's why. I think it's less the ring pulling on the ring bearers after it's destroyed as it is, like, the lack of ring. The ring-shaped hole in your heart, as it were.
Well, I was going to ask, do you think like Tolkien was trying to say something about, the power of temptation over us, that like it's something we live with for our entire lives, that like, while you might like, conquer something or have like, an addiction that you break, that the temptation of it will always be there to like, you'll always like sort of want it in some way until we are ultimately healed in, Valinor and heaven.
Right.
It's
kind of like, I mean, it's not the same thing, but it's kind of like when Frodo gets stabbed by the knife, and it's like, yeah, it's been like a year and 13 days or whatever it was, since Weathertop. And what was it? Oh yeah, it was a movie quote, I guess. Elrond's like, he's probably going to carry it for the rest of his life.
Yeah. I mean, I think that is because, again, those are like magical artifacts, but those are like acute injuries. I think it's the long exposure to the ring and the like claiming of the ring at the mountain that really does Frodo in. Like, he, for the rest of the book, I mean, actually for most of the book, like, I like Frodo as a character, but he's really sad all the time. Because, for good reason. But
it's the one of the weirdest main characters, right? Is that like Luke Skywalker, our plucky hero or whatever, and that's not Frodo, right? He's like the suffering servant or whatever. Christ analogy and that so, like nobody really wants to be him.
Yeah, no, nobody's not gonna like Frodo's life.
All right.
But yeah, so it's this whole thing of Frodo is like spiritually wounded by this thing, and so it's not until he goes to Valinor that he is healed. And then I will also point out, and this might make people really sad, but technically, like, I think a lot of people think that, like, all right, Frodo and Bilbo and Gimli, and they all went out to the west, and they're just happy over there in Valinor for the rest of time. But, like, the implication is not that once you set foot on Valinor, you're just immortal now. It's just that it's the Undying Lands, because that's where the Undying people live. And so, I think Tolkien, and I believe he wrote about this in his letters, that his intention was that they go and they're healed and they live out the rest of their life healed of those hurts and wounds, but then they do eventually die. So Frodo doesn't live, sorry.
Well, I mean, in the world, like, your spirits go somewhere too, right? So that's everybody is immortal in some way, right?
I just saw this great meme that was that scene of Gandalf and Pippin where he's talking about, like, what death is like, and then it's just like, now, that's how I experience death. I don't know about what... Nobody knows where Hobbit souls go, and I don't even know if you would qualify.
That's funny.
Anyways.
So, I was thinking, like, so if we think of, like, there's Sauron and Saruman, they're sort of like the evil forces in Lord of the Rings, and the ring is sort of like the private evil. And so if we, like, analogize that to our own world, we might think of, like, hey, there are bad things out there, bad ideas out there that are, like, influencing the world that we have to fight against. But there's also, like, the evil in our own lives and homes that we have to fight against. Because I think it's really interesting. If you look at the ring, right, what it does is it, like, when it corrupts people and makes them inward focused, right, that they're always focused on themselves and the thing, precious.
Literally,
precious.
As he's going, Frodo is, like, down, looking inward because of the weight of the ring.
But also, like, it divides people, right? Like, it makes them fight among each other, right? And you see, like, the Fellowship, which is, like, this people who, like, hey, we're gonna do this thing together, and they're like these brothers. Then they all like end up breaking apart, and Bart even turns on his own, the person he swore to protect.
Yeah, I will say, I think they played that up too much in the movie. I like probably my least favorite part of the movies is Gollum convincing Frodo to leave, to send Sam back. Like I that just felt like added drama for the sake of added drama, and they needed to pad the time out a little bit in Two Towers. Because yeah, like I think there is infighting and things like that, but that's just a pet peeve of mine. Because Sam, like, if Frodo told him like you have to go back, Sam would be like okay, and then he'd wait 5 minutes and just keep following him. Like he would never be fully, because like in the movie he's going down. It's not till he sees the lembas bread that he's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Because also Sam doesn't trust Gollum. He would be like, obviously he's tricking you.
Yeah.
Maybe I was sleepwalking.
Yeah, no, I that part I really didn't like. That's like one of the bits that I just.
But the fact that the ring causes grudges is true, right, in the story and
mean,
stuff. And
the first thing it does when it's found by someone other than Isildur or Sauron is get its first bearer murdered. So yeah, I'd say it causes some civil strife.
And like, yeah, right, that Isildur, like, it sort of caused a rift between him and the elves, right, that he refused to give it up. So like you see like maybe two things, like one, obsession that like somebody loses focus on everything else but the thing, and two, it's like dissent among people.
Yeah.
And so like maybe that says something about what Tolkien thinks is evil and what he thinks is good, right? That, you know, a good life is something that's full of different things and not just obsessed over one thing, and also with fellowship with other people.
I also do want to point out that, and again, I should have read this before, but the ring was inspired also by a Norse saga.
The Nibelung?
Yes. And in that tale, it is specifically a metaphor for greed. And so I think that is something that's, you know, that's why you have, it's called the precious, is because it's something that people desire. And I think that in The Lord of the Rings, it's more of a metaphor for power. But I did want to point out before we got too much further the historiography of rings, of evil rings.
I remember like reading a TLDR of that story, and I remember thinking that like, hey, while there is like this magic ring that's evil and corrupts people, it's like very, very different the way it corrupts people and sort of like
it turns at least one person into a dragon.
Maybe. Oh, that's right, because it also is like why C.S. Lewis wrote the one about that boy becoming a dragon as well.
I get how dragons were perceived historically, but I think I would totally
be down for a dragon change.
I'd be down to get turned into a dragon by a magical ring, just for a little bit.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Phil?
Any thoughts? You know, I think we hit on a lot of good things. Yeah, I think. I don't know, we kind of already maybe like kind of touched on it, but something that is interesting to think about is how like what Tolkien wrote into his stories was that like there's always a right or wrong decision to be made no matter who you are, and it's not subjective.
I have a take.
See that with the ring, I guess. Like, it doesn't matter who takes the ring; it's for the wrong purposes.
I have a take on that, and sort of tying with like the idea of obsession, what the ring tempts us as. And this is maybe really controversial, but I think maybe all like American society prizes obsession over things. And here's a story about Michael Phelps, and Michael Phelps is one of the most famous athletes ever, right? Won atomic swimming medals, but I was reading a book on perseverance, and they like held up Michael Phelps as an example, which of course makes sense, right? But they said something really interesting. They said whenever he was a kid growing up, his swimming coach would say, every night when you go to bed, I want you to think about swimming the perfect race, and I want you to imagine it step by step by step. And I was like, you know what? I don't want my kids every night thinking about like swimming, right? Like, I don't know. I just don't, right? Like, I want them to have a life that's more and beyond and has full and of multiple things, right? Like, and I don't want them just like obsessing over a single thing their entire life, right? Even if that means they'll never be the best at that thing, like maybe that isn't worth it. I don't know. Maybe that's not a good thing to be. And so is that maybe what Tolkien's trying to say with like how the people get obsessed with the ring, or am I just making that up?
I don't know. I mean, I think that's just a good point in general, but I think like that's sort of how they all like. I think all of the rings sort of work that way, because I think each of the races sort of have their own interpretation of this. So if you look at the other rings, you have the 3 rings where you have these elves that are like somewhat obsessed with the preservation of their realms. Although really it's only Galadriel. Like Elrond, I guess Elrond.
Yeah, he just wants to keep Rivendell safe for him and protected.
Gandalf is kind of preserving the whole world. Think about it.
Yes.
Again, based Círdan is like, here, have this magical cursed ring. I don't need it anymore. I can do it myself. Then the humans are like a constant theme with humanity in Tolkien's world is their relationship with death. Like, to the extent that it's almost like the defining feature of humanity is that they are the ones who die. And so you have the proper relationship with death that the early Númenóreans have, where it is like seen as rest from weariness and returning to Ilúvatar because nobody knows where their souls go, and all this. You have the later Númenóreans who get obsessed with immortality and necromancy and things like that. And then you have these other races of men, including some of the, there's probably some of the Númenóreans and some other races of men there too, that they're given the rings as a way to enhance their power and preserve their lives. And the dwarves are just obsessed with gold because Aule was like, hey, metal's cool, you should go make things out of it. Also, poor guy. Everything he does just kind of goes terribly.
Yeah, I mean...
he has the worst servants.
So I actually have a question. I mean, do you think Gollum would have ever died if the ring hadn't been destroyed?
I don't think that like preserving life, like long life, I don't think necessarily means that like you aren't just going to decay. Like think about Gollum.
Well,
like
he was 500 years old. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think that the way it works is he would have essentially become a wraith, where it's the idea of you're being spread too thin like butter over too
your life doesn't
too much toast.
You don't get more life,
Yes.
Your life stretches.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so and that is, again, that's the trade-off, is that the elves the elves preserve their realms, but they can't go back to the real realm. The dwarves grow their fortunes, but they become basically desensitized to it, and it consumes them. And the humans, they get eternal life, but it's eternal hell, essentially. Of you're denied the rest that you actually want. You were denied returning to Ilúvatar. You were denied your reward because you are you're so obsessed with staying in this life. And I think Gollum eventually would have died, but I think in the same way that hobbits are essentially just shorter, sturdier men, it's that same idea of eventually he would have wasted away into a really short ring wraith. And like you see this with other spiritually charged beings like Sauron and Saruman, where once they're defeated, they're not actually destroyed. Saruman very famously has that thing where like he gets stabbed by Wormtongue, and then you see this like shimmer that looks into the west, and then the clouds go over the sun, and it dissolves off into the east. Sauron too, I believe it's basically like they basically say like this isn't getting rid of Sauron. Like he's not something that can be fully destroyed, but he's being so completely weakened and like frustrated in his attempts that like he'll never be a threat again. But like there is still a spirit of Sauron somewhere, probably out in the, and like even Morgoth is not destroyed at the end of the Silmarillion. He is shunted into the outer darkness,
Enchained, right?
enchained to come back at the end of time in the stuff that Christopher Tolkien didn't put in the Silmarillion. I'm still mad about it because it robs Turin of like his whole like catharsis. Anyways, so it's not until the end of time when things are destroyed and remade that you get these beings destroyed. And so I think hypothetically, if that had happened with Gollum, that, you know, he would have been like an evil spirit that sort of haunts the forests and the world, you know, making children mean and stuff. I don't think he would have been particularly powerful, but
You can't eat babies anymore, but you can at least make them mean.
yeah, basically. And so I think his whole that if at all, that would have been his fate. But again, I think that I don't know. Like, there's a question too: if hobbits are just, you know, men essentially,
Mortals, yeah.
and mortals like that have their reward is to go with Ilúvatar. Does Gollum get to go be with, or I guess Smeagol rather? Is Smeagol at Ilúvatar's side waiting for the end of time? Did he get thrown in with Sauron? Like, what is his fate? Because again, he is, you know, he wants to redeem himself, and then he doesn't redeem himself, but then he kind of does redeem himself, but not through any act of his own.
Unconsciously.
So, being
Right.
used as this instrument of Ilúvatar's in the world, does he get that? Anyways,
I have no idea.
just Smeagol gets reincarnated to get a second shot.
Gollum dies forever.
Gollum dies
Yeah.
forever.
Smeagol's alive. I had one other question on the rings effects, and like one we haven't talked about is like whenever somebody puts on the ring, Sauron like knows about where they are, right? That's like sort of the interesting one. And so there's this temptation for them to hide. Is that like something that like, hey, this like tempting evil drives you to hide yourself from the gaze of others, or is this just a plot device to move the story along?
I think it's just Sauron is terrifying. Like, quite honestly, like, because that's another sort of gauge of power is who can go toe to toe with Sauron. So you have Aragorn claiming the Palantirs, because they're rightfully his. And you have
Gandalf,
but I will say
on the Amon Hen,
yes,
he strives with Sauron, which they don't show in the movies, but it's in the books.
The one that people talk about the least, that is actually the coolest, is Denethor. Because the reason he's like depressed and sad all the time is because basically anytime he's not in public, he's up in his tower going like psychic battle with Sauron in the Palantir. And it is this like, the movies make him like a full-on villain, basically. But throughout the books, he's talked about as like, oh no, he's actually like
Tragic.
He's a tragic figure, but he's also like one of the most Númenórean people who have been born in the last several hundred years. He is actually really powerful in magic, and he is like, the reason Gondor still exists is because he is going, like, he is striving with Sauron constantly and like holding his own. Like, he's not beating him. He's slowly getting pushed back into despair, but even when he's in the despair, he's still doing it because he knows he has to.
Well, an idea was that he was deceived by Sauron, that what he saw through the Palantir is what
Yes.
Sauron wanted him to see. So he saw an untold number of forces or whatever, and so he's like, oh, we could never win.
Yes.
And so,
And that's also why, like, it's so tragic, his relationship with Boromir and Faramir, is because in the ways that mattered, Faramir was much more like Denethor than Boromir was. And Denethor was blind. He didn't have the eyes to see it. But that of his two sons, like, if it had been a different time and he had to have a son to keep on his fight with Sauron, it's Faramir that would have been able to do it, not Boromir.
Yeah.
And so that's why...
Denethor did nothing wrong.
Yeah, Denethor actually best character.
Yes.
No notes.
Burning your son alive, you know, it's what anyone would have done in his situation.
He's like, look, was it good? No. Was it metal? Yeah.
And then he's like on fire, jumps off. He's like, I'm gonna take some orcs with me, bro. Like some of those orcs out there are going with me.
He's like, I don't think he jumps off the cliff. Actually, no, he does in the books. He does like throw himself off a cliff. And I'm like, you know what? If I'm already realizing all my despair and I'm like already on fire, I think I also would go out in the most dramatic way possible.
On fire, jumping off the cliff.
It's like I always thought, like, if I, they did these like the nuke drills in like the 70s and the 80s where like you'd hide under your desk. I'm like, if I know my city's about to get nuked, I'm going to the roof of my building, waiting for the flash to go off, and then hurling myself off the building into the fireball. Like, I want to go out cool. I don't want to
be huddling under my desk. Yeah. You guys, you heard it here first. If you ever hear Matt dies in a nuclear explosion, we know how he went.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. Like a boss.
Unfortunately, Matt lives pretty close to my house, so I won't be around to know it.
Man, if Pittsburgh got moved, it'd be so bad because it like would bounce off the mountain walls and downtown would just be gone.
Yes, Pittsburgh getting nuked would be bad.
Man, yeah,
You heard it here first. We oppose the nuking of Pittsburgh.
Well, was it the we're
But some cities
were people comparing the One Ring with the nuclear bomb, or was that something else?
I've heard that.
I mean, everything's been compared with the nuclear bomb. Like, I don't think that's... I think if he had that in mind, it's less an analogy for nuclear explosions as it is just an analogy for... Because this is another theme that he constantly uses, which is the, like, inexorable and unchecked march of technology. So, a lot of the scenes in Isengard are very reminiscent of like World War I trench warfare because that's what he saw. Sorry, my ears are really pressured.
No, you're good.
That part.
No, we're including that. That will be exclusively
all through, man. People are gonna be like, "Whoa, what was that guy doing? What the?"
So yeah, there's all this stuff with Isengard where it's and like you look at Sauron. They're corrupted servants of Aule, who is the crafter, who is the smith. And I think that's an important telling because it's not that Tolkien is opposed to technology and industry. It's that he's opposed to unchecked industry that doesn't that is unreflective. And so
I think it's actually even maybe deeper than that. Like you think Feanor, right, is like the most beautiful craftsman. But I think it's
he learns a lot from El.
The idea that like the act of creation is itself something that like is prideful, right? And so it's like whenever we create something, we're like replacing God in some sense, and therefore that's like the most easily to be corrupted is the craftsman.
I think the counter argument,
either that or Tolkien was just bullied by the craft kids at his school. It was like, guess what, guys? I'm making all of you evil in my books.
So I think to your point, the one counter example of something being created and not being terrible is the creation of the dwarves. So Aule creates these dwarves. And then, as soon as he realizes the error of his ways, he goes to destroy them because he's like, "Oh my goodness, I messed up."
Well, he doesn't. Iluvatar is like, you have to kill them, right, or something, and so then Aule does it because he's commanded to. I thought.
Well, because he once he realizes like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done this," he goes to strike them, and then that's when Iluvatar gives them life. You can double check me.
I don't know where it's at.
Okay.
So I just don't.
We also have AI tell us things.
That's unreflective technology. We can't use it. So
they wouldn't have had that, back in Middle Earth,
Yeah, okay. Blah blah blah. Where is it? Where he talks about? Yeah. So he says,
Okay, you're right. Yeah, Ally was ashamed and prepared
Yeah.
to destroy his creations, but seeing Ally's humility and sincerity
Yes.
granted the doors true to
and
life.
so it's the creation meant to glorify that is given, meant to glorify correctly that is given prominence and mercy, whereas all of the Smiths that go on to be, evil, it's they're all doing it for their own pride. So, well, I guess Melkor is not. Okay, yeah, all of them like create jewelry and vain items. Fëanor creates the Silmarils, and yes, they're like holy and pure and perfect, but like he's like, no, they're mine. No one can have them. They are my shiny rocks. And Sauron famously crafts some rings. I don't know if you guys knew this. It's kind
Talking
Tell us
about
more.
One Ring,
Yeah.
you know,
Minor
it's just
plot but even Saruman
So
crafts his multicolored robes because
Yeah.
what he's been given isn't good enough. And so he goes, and it's all of that creation that is, it's all self-edification and look at how cool I am and look at what I did. And even Saruman making his orc army, he's like, I'm doing it better than Sauron. And like there's still this idea that he's going to betray Sauron. And so it is craft for the sake of necessity and craft for the sake of like joy and helping others and glorifying the creator, like the capital C creator, that are recognized as good. But it's very easy for those sorts of people to be like, well, look at how cool I am and look what I did. And that's why so many of Aule's servants turn evil. The poor guy.
Those rings Sauron creates, is he like in control of them? Would you say he's like the lord of those rings?
no.
No, we already established that the Anduin is the Lord of the Rings.
The river that the ring spent the whole most time in is the lord of the rings.
Yeah, and so, it's interesting because you see that parallel of Aule is teaching, and he's so trusting too, because he cannot conceive of doing something against Ilúvatar's will, that he will just, he teaches Fëanor. I'm sure he taught Sauron and Saruman, and then they're like, thanks, Dad, I'm gonna go be awful. And then they did.
Yeah, the pride is sort of like the root of all sins, right? Is sort of the idea that I think Tolkien is trying to communicate, and that's the ring is right. It corrupts people who are prideful, right, and who are tempted by pride.
I think that the biggest lie the ring tells you is that, yeah, you can do it. You can use me for good. You can do all this. Like even with in the case study of what if Gandalf gets the ring, like he beats Sauron. And then he's like, I know what's best for everyone. And then he basically, like in this, there's a letter that Tolkien wrote where he talks about what would happen if Gandalf got the ring. And it basically is he becomes the worst tyrant ever because he's so pure that any sin and crime is then punishable by essentially death. And so, like, he becomes like a Templar. And so, again, even that's the lie, is that no, I'm the guy, I'm him, I'm the one that can actually outsmart the ring, and no one can outsmart the ring.
Yeah, it's fun.
Sauron outsmarted the ring.
It's fun learning like this like pride thing, but luckily I'm like good enough that I don't have to worry about that. So
Oh, of course. Yes. Darn it. No. Ah, man. Well, you guys have any ending thoughts or calendar matters or concerns? No?
no, we covered a lot. We covered a
Yeah,
lot
I
about the
think we
ring.
did.
Find a ring in a cave.
Nibelung.
Take it. It's not worth it.
Just don't take it. All right.
Maybe tell your local wizard.
What if it is a magnet? What if it magnets to your magnet though? I mean,
magnetic rings you have to take. Also, as an aside,
Say that I'm wearing 2 rings right now.
whenever I said Tolkien was like getting bullied by like the craft kids at school, I just thought it'd be like hilarious if like, I know this isn't true, but like if Tolkien is like, at his school, it's like, hey, his like nerdy friend was like named Legolas and stuff, and like every single one of his characters is actually just straight up named from his actual like high school or whatever.
The Lord of the Rings is Tolkien's D&D campaign.
Right, exactly. Like when he was like back in high school, it's
There's
like,
actually a really good series of YouTube videos where somebody goes. There's a D&D YouTuber who goes through the Lord of the Rings as if it's a D&D campaign. It's really funny.
it's
Man.
good.
Well, thanks guys for coming on and
Yeah.
recording. No, this is great. Man, that's probably been, this is like 2025, 3 years.
Yeah.
It's been 3 years.
Tune in next
Since
week.
we
when
were here.
All of them about the health benefits of raw fish.
Yes,
Oh my gosh, that would actually be
it's
pretty
not just
funny.
healthy; it's also juicy and sweet.
Oh, plus sauce.
It's better we take them out of sacred pools.
Oh my gosh. Dude. Maybe just have some comedy skit next time.
Comedy skit.
Yeah.
Okay, it's an
I'll
AS.
stream Skyrim and roleplay as Aragorn.
I'll do a Gollum ASMR routine.
Actually, I have like a mod where you can play as a kid. I could totally play as Frodo.
Oh man. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and catch us for our next episode next week. Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
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 Bye.